Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining me this morning. So today I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking more about digital twins. And this is a continuation in our series exploring digital twins and virtual commissioning and how they can help improve a design process and even improve a variety of things once you've actually got a product on a production floor. So today we'll drill a little bit deeper into the development and diagnostics aspects of how a digital twin can help you. So we'll start with that quintessential motivation that should motivate most of you, which is the costs of design changes and how they get increasingly more expensive as you move through the design process. So right here we see if you were to catch some issue with your design early in the concept or system design phase, that's a very inexpensive problem to fix. That can be little more than just tweaking your design in perhaps whatever modeling software you're using. But as you step through to production and even a release to market, things get a lot more expensive, and all the way up to having to shut down a production floor or worse. And if we were to sort of break these into two categories, the more expensive issues that are identified are typically without model-based techniques. So these are issues that are identified on the actual physical machine. The less expensive design changes are typically identified with model-based techniques, and those will end up being a lot less expensive, and they're typically quicker to fix as well, so they save on a lot of resources. And we've looked into some of the research on this, and this is a stat we've used quite a bit these days, and really just putting a little bit more money up front, although it can seem a little bit less direct into how that will provide cost savings. When people have studied different companies and how they've allocated their money in designing products, they'll see that it can save them quite a bit of money in the overall. It's just a matter of having that foresight to do a little bit more work on the modeling and simulation aspects of designing a product. So a digital twin, if you haven't already heard of it by now, it's a virtual representation of a corresponding physical product. So it's typically a model-based representation of what your physical product is going to do, how it's going to behave, and what the various forces are going to be throughout the motion path or throughout the operation of that machine. And when something like this is built, it's hugely effective for conceptual development. You can scan through 24 different motors in a matter of minutes rather than having to test them all out in a physical prototype. For virtual commissioning, this can be really effective for the folks who are designing the controllers for these machines. We're now seeing companies test their controls against a digital twin, and that allows them to iron out a huge amount of bugs up front so that when they actually go to the commissioning stage and they test their integration in a physical product, the amount of issues they identify are going to be far less. And for online diagnostics, this is when you are running your physical product, it's running along, but we're referencing that against a digital twin, sometimes in real time, just to get a sense of how the physical machine is operating compared to what its ideal operation ought to be, which is the digital twin. That helps you find a lot of issues early before they become even larger issues. And overall, we use these things and hope that they'll make you have a better design at the end of the day. They might give you more tools and techniques to test different kinds of designs that either you hadn't had the skill sets to design in the past, or just the risk seemed too high just to even test out that idea. So overall, it's just a really great tool that can plug into a whole wide range of areas in the design process. So they can help in a variety of ways. We've talked about a few of these already. Let's say, virtual sensors might be one area that we haven't quite touched on. So you're designing a controller, and you may not need to place physical sensors at every location you might have otherwise placed them. They're expensive, but a digital twin, it's rooted in just a bunch of accurate physics, and your digital twin is going to have, say, the moment loading on your bearings. It's going to have that information there. You may not need a sensor to pull that kind of information. So some folks are either temporarily using virtual sensors to replace physical ones, or they're just saving money by reducing the total amount of physical sensors. And like we've said before, predictive maintenance is going to go hand in hand with diagnostics. Your twin can help forecast when maintenance needs to be done to save you from having more downtime than absolutely necessary. But today we're going to focus on two areas. We're going to go a little bit deeper into these. So the first will be the conceptual development phase, and the second will be the diagnostics that I was talking about. So in the conceptual development phase, this is where all that early experimentation is going to happen to your design concepts. And this is where you're trying to get a sense of what the behavior of your machine will actually be like. So this is going to give you not just an insight into, say, how one component is going to experience stresses, but this is a system level kind of conceptual development. So if you're interested in learning all the different forces at play in your motors in a really specific sense as your machine is going through a motion path, you can start to perform all sorts of different analysis with those things in mind. As you're making your design decisions, you're going to have a simulation-based set of data and evidence to base those on. And while every engineer has their own background and set of experience where they can sort of use their intuitions and skill sets, to be able to use simulation results to back up design decisions helps keep that process going a little bit more smooth. And just the overall speed of it all. And like I said, to be able to test out different concepts at a simulation level, these things can happen much more quickly. So you might have a design meeting and then otherwise would have to go away, either use very resource intensive programs. If you're trying to do any sort of dynamics in an FEA program, that might take a while. Or even if you need to build some sort of physical prototype, these things take a lot of time. But if you could actually perform some of those iterations, say even in the design meeting, it's just a few clicks of a button, that helps keep momentum up on a design team. So what I want to do now is I'll just briefly step out of this and I'll get right into our software. Our software is MapleSim. It is a system level modeling and simulation tool. And this is where model-based digital twins, one of the places that they come from. So what you're looking at here is a simple model that we use for demonstration. It's a pick-and-place robot. And you might be able to see we've got 4 different components here. We've got different arms of a pick-and-place robot. It was actually that video in the presentation I just swapped from. And we've got different joints between all of these here, and we've got motors driving them. Now what we did is these components here, this was just CAD information that we automatically imported from a CAD software. So that's a great way to sort of kickstart some design you have. You can bring these in. And then over here, this is a parameter pane. So when we were to click on, say, our joint here, or to any piece of our design, we're able to sort of tune them to be at the specific sort of design that we need. So let's just get right into the conceptual part. Let's say we're trying to figure out what sort of motors we want to use right now. We're trying to tune them specifically. I'm going to click on the simulate button here. And what that's going to do is it's going to take all of our multi-body information. It'll take just a whole range of how the motion profile needs to look. And boom, it's going to put up here the results of that simulation. So to get a quick visual inspection, what you're going to do here is just press play. Now what I've done just before this presentation started, so that we have a reference point, is I have 2 sets of results overlapping here with different amounts of cycles per minute. I'm going to turn off the earlier one. So your initial 20 cycles per minute, there's a good visual read on what that looks like. And then if you wanted to get the specific numbers out, say we have here a plot over time and the different speeds that our motor number 1 is experiencing and the corresponding torques. Motor 1 is going to be the motor in this first joint here. Now, if we're trying to figure out though, okay, I see the kind of torques that my motors are experiencing with this setup, but what I'm really interested in doing is trying to figure out which of my specific motors that I have on catalog, what I'm going to be using. So I went back to MapleSim. We've got this analysis worksheet. We've got a whole variety of these for doing common types of design tasks. This one, for example, it's a machine design, and it's going to step us through a couple of the different things that we might want to do. One of those things being motor sizing. So we load our model right here. We load it into Maple, which is our mathematical computation tool. So these things work in tandem. They're very tightly integrated. Simulation is done, which means that as I step through these now, we have all that same kind of information that are set up in the worksheet to sort of go through our design here. But we're interested in looking at the motor performance. So this here, it may look familiar to some of you who work in machine design, but this is a speed and torque curve for motor number 2. And we could change this to any motor, but this is just an example. So you can see here that you can see the torques experienced at any given motor speed. And what we have here, for example purposes, we have our own, let's say motor A and motor B. But when we have customers, they load in their catalog of motors, and then what they're able to do is, okay, let's take a look at motor A. It's a smaller motor. Given the parameters and my loads and how heavy my payload is this going to work out? And what we see here is the small area at the beginning here, when the motor is sort of speeding up quickly, moving from rest, there are some torque spikes there. And those are outside of the safe typical operation of that motor. You can overlap another one, put motor B on there, and you can see it's a much bigger motor. It's overkill, really, is what it is in this example, but it would safely be able to handle the parameters that we need for our design. So in a specific example, in a practical application, we probably try to find a motor somewhere in between there so that we're not over-engineering this motor. And those are the kind of things, the kind of questions that you can answer when you're going through a conceptual development process. And I'll get to some of the other areas after, but that was just a quick example of how you might decide on, say, the specific motor you need. And of course, if you were back in MapleSim, you'd have the option of changing a whole host of parameters, changing how the thing moves, changing how the frictions are going to be. So it really helps you get a sense of hitting that sort of right size area, so you don't have to spend more money on a bigger motor in this example, or risk that maybe these things are going to burn out faster than you thought they would. Okay, so we're going to head back in here. So that was a quick demo there about how we would develop a better machine with really a much lower risk of having some design issues once the product was being built. Now for the online diagnostics benefits here, this is about running the digital twin in parallel with the real machine. And this can be in real time during operation, but it can also be a sort of semi-frequent check-in to gauge the health of your machine and where it's at. And by doing those check-ins, you're going to be able to spot those performance deviations early. If you're just looking at it by the naked eye, or you're you're getting a sense of what this 5-year-old machine is doing, you're probably going to notice that it might slow down in areas, or the motion might not be as smooth. But to really have an ideal set of operating data against the real machine performance, it'll give you a much clearer insight as to perhaps what part of your machine needs to be repaired. And that's a root cause that you're going to be able to determine more easily. And another thing you'll be able to do is, sure, you may diagnose some root cause of your issue. Say you have a motor that is it's not performing like it used to for whatever reason. Either you'll be able to have the ability at this point to determine that cause, and then you can replace that motor, but you also might be able to know, well, this only has X amount of years more life that we need out of it. Maybe we'll just tune our controllers differently, knowing that now we have some older components that we need to just push some more performance out of. So I'll take some of those ideas there and run through the same model, just another way of thinking about how we'd use it for diagnostics. So if we were to go back to MapleSim, let's sort of continue with that hypothetical of, okay, we've got this pick and place robot. It's been in operation for, let's say, 5 years. And what I'll do here is, if I go back to our simulation results, If I turn on this 18 cycles per minute here, this would be, say, let's say after 5 years or so, that you're noticing that your cycles per minute have just gone down. Maybe it's 19 or 19 and a half, but it's slowing down a bit, and that's an issue. This thing is going to work in tandem with a variety of other machines. So if we were to look here, what some folks have done, this is actually, we've been recently working with folks who are doing this. The machine's older, it's starting to wear down a bit, and you've still got physical sensors on that machine. So what you might do is, say how we actually got this hypothetical 18 cycles per minute in, is you might pull that physical sensor data from your 5-year-old machine, and then you could import it just into MapleSim here. We allow you to say import a table of what the different areas would be, like as it's going through that old cycle. And you can bring in all the different force and torque informations. So you've got your physical sensor data. Let's say that's the 18 cycles per minute. So you see, okay, it's the torques are a bit lower, the speeds are a bit lower, and just even visually, if you were to be able to overlay the digital twin, you would be able to notice just what we're seeing here, that things are moving a little bit slower. Now again, you'll be presented with those two options, and this is what we had to do as well. Is what we did was we hopped into one of our many different templates here. Let's see if I just go to here. You have all these different apps that allow you to sort of work with your model. So let's say we're looking to do some optimization, and that is what we're trying to do now. We've got a bunch of data that gets us to an 18 cycles per minute, but we're really looking to get that back to 20. This worksheet here, it's exactly what we would need to use. And that would allow us to pull in the digital twin based data, pull in the physical data, and throughout using a worksheet like this, what we'd be able to do is figure out, well, what are the torques and what are the inputs to our controllers that we need to push more performance out. It might end up that our motors will be experiencing, they'll require more power, but that's fine because that's going to push some more life out of our machine. And then with those new that new data set, with the new set of parameters, now we have a digital twin that's based off our 5-year-old machine, and then from that we can just tune our controllers in popular automation software, and by doing that we can bring some new life or breathe some new life back into this machine. Instead of having to replace components, we can just refresh our model with the state of where our components are at, redesign our controllers based on that, and then we can push who knows how many more years out of it. And this is something that may be harder to achieve if you're just working off the specifications of the machine that you get from your manufacturer. You might need to change the motion path at some point. Your machine provider may not be giving you the full set of operating parameters giving any motion path. That can often not really be in their business. So if you were to have a digital twin that would give you an accurate model-based representation of your machine and at any point in its operation, that's going to allow you to tune your controllers based on the exact machine you have and also root out problems. We've had customers who have used that methodology there to determine that they need to replace a motor and just upgrade it. But then we've had other customers who have seen that, well, this motor's probably good enough. It's just a matter of changing how our motion path works and just tuning our controllers a little bit better. So these are the sort of options and information available to you if you were to have a sort of model-based approach in how you do some diagnostics work. It gives you far more insight than just simply poking around and deciding to replace different components piece by piece to try and remedy a problem. With this, you'll get a real sense of exactly what's going on. So I talked a bit about our software MapleSim, and as a company, we've been in the modeling and computation world for quite a while. And over the years, we've helped bring our benefits to a variety of companies, really across industries, because for so many people, the ability to have more insight to your products up front, like the research bared out, it can be very valuable. And perhaps you've been sitting here watching what I've done and you thought, well, this all sounds great, but it also seems like a skill set that I just don't have. It seems intangible to me. And we've realized that over the years. And we've found that one of the more effective ways to start off is to work together for a pilot project where perhaps we start from some CAD of one of our customers. And we help step through proving out the value of a digital twin in a small project. And then once you've got that digital twin, realizing the benefits of it is really much easier than creating it. So we have a variety of services where we can help build apps for whatever design problem you're trying to look for. We can help with component sizing, for optimizing machine performance to make sure that your machine is performing in a way that's not wasting power or reducing the lifespan of that machine. And we help connect that digital twin up to common automation software, which is becoming increasingly common. There's a very good chance that you folks use that software currently. And if you're really looking to go deeper and really realize the full set of value out of this, that's where we do customized training courses and help with contract staff. So that was just a way to dive deeper into two of the handful of benefits of a digital twin. And over the months, we'll be exploring a variety of them. But as it stands now, I'd just like to open it up to questions. I know I only got into two areas, but I'm happy to field any sort of questions relating to digital twin and model-based design.